Hello out there in the Mad River Valley. My name is Doug Bergstein, and I'm here with Theater Time with Doug Bergstein. And that's who I am, Doug Bergstein. Well, I'm here this week to talk about an annual event that happens at the Valley Players Theater, and it's called Cabin Fever Follies. It will not be live. Well, it will be live. It will not be in the theater this year. It will be coming to you through your computer on Zoom. But it will be just as exciting, just as interesting, just as chaotic as it would have been had it been in person in the theater.
Live on Mad River TV too.
Oh, it will also be streaming on Mad River TV live. They're going to patch through our streaming situation. So I have with me here today the producer of the show, Sharon Kellerman, and I also have two participants, one really long-time participant and one young but experienced participant. So let's show them, Tony. There's Sharon in the upper left-hand corner and Michael Taub, who's been performing since 2005 and maybe a little bit before then. And then we've got Taryn Askew, who has performed the last 4 years or so, right, Taryn?
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so Sharon, let's start with you. You have been producing this thing since 1996. That is a long time ago. How have things changed over the years?
How have they changed? Not much. It's still the same crazy, spontaneous show that it ever was. It started with just the acts. And then one year, one table came with in costume. I think it was like a spring picnic. And people thought that was a great idea. So they started coming more and more with costumes, which led us to now we give prizes for the best table. And then somewhere along the way, our funds were getting a little low. So we were trying to figure out what we could do to make a little more money. And that's how the Raisinets were born. People pay to have messages danced across the stage.
So speaking of the Raisinets, we
Yes.
are going to have the Raisinets this year.
Yes.
Despite the fact that you're not going to be there in the theater, we have figured out a way for you to purchase your messages. You can do that right now, as a matter of fact, by going to valleyplayers.com. There's a spot right on there for you to purchase your Raisinet message. And we've got people who are prepared to make their signs, dress up in funny, plump costumes, and we've got the music. I heard it through the grapevine. So if that's the only reason you ever came to Cabin Fever Follies, you can get that again this year. So Sharon, back to you. The whole Cabin Fever Folly thing was thought up by Bob Law in 1986, right? And so that was just, hey, let's get some folks and we'll get together. And you had people who just sort of went on stage and just sort of went with it, right? They sang songs, they told stories. Who was that? The elderly gentlemen who were doing that. What were their names?
Oh, Bob Gove and Ed Irish. I don't think they were there the first few years, but they came on fairly soon after.
Right, and I remember them when I started in. I started as kind of Peter Boynton's assistant. And I took over the directorial management in 2006. But I remember Bob and Ed, and they just sort of got on stage and just sort of went for it. I don't think they had a plan.
They talked to each other. They talked to the audience. They told stories. Maybe they sang a song or two. They just extemporaneously did whatever.
Right.
And people loved it.
Right. So, Michael, so I started directing in 2006, and as I mentioned, I was helping Peter before that, and both your kids would perform in Cabin Fever Follies. Is that correct?
Yeah, Mallory and Shayna both were in. I remember one year they did a scene from You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown. But Shayna started performing fairly early. She was also in the Valley Players production of Alice in Wonderland. I think she was a flower. One of the nicest things. And then, of course, when Ruth Ann did Annie, she was Annie.
Yep.
But it's so nice that Cabin Fever and Valley Players gives kids a chance to try out theater and see how it goes for them.
So
My first memory of Shayna in Cabin Fever Follies was, I don't know, she was about 7 or 8 years old. This little slip of a thing came on stage in a black sheath with a boa around her neck. And, everyone thought, oh, this cute little girl is going to sing some sweet little song. And she started belting out Adelaide's Lament from Guys and Dolls. And it was like, whoa.
No, she certainly has always been talented. And, she was very into theater and just seemed to know every show. She could hear something once and do it again. So it was funny. I remember that too.
So, Michael, you started taking the stage yourself a little bit, and you took center stage in 2005 with the skiing song. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, yeah, I just, it was a song I wrote. I started writing it in the fall of 2005 and finished it in the Salt Lake City airport, of all places, in 2005, returning from a ski trip with a friend who used to live in the valley, Doug Green, who died in an avalanche. And over the years, it seems to me the song is more about the people we've lost over the year, skiers that aren't there. The last verse has become more meaningful. And, last year we lost Jennifer. I wanted to say something about her, but we didn't have our show. So it's just something I think about. I wrote a new verse last year that I'm going to show this year.
Excellent.
But I was also glad. I think Pat Moriarty was one of the old timers. I mean, those guys and Peter Boynton who closed the show for so long. And when you asked me to close the show, it was quite a compliment because I was taking over for those old timers, and it's something I take seriously.
Excellent. Well, I knew you were the right man for the job. So, do you feel like an old timer now?
Well, I'm really not as old as I look, but yes, definitely, it's getting up there. Every time I go skiing or stuff, but I don't know. It's just really nice to come back to the Cabin Fever every year.
Yeah,
it's always a fun show.
Well, we're all young at heart, aren't we?
Yeah.
Speaking of young, that brings us to Taryn. Hey, Taryn.
Hey, Taryn.
So you are our youngest performer this year, and not by a lot, but by a little. And you've been in quite a few Valley Players productions, as well as 3 or 4 Cabin Fever Follies. So tell us about your experiences with Cabin Fever Follies.
So I started, I think it was in 2017 for the first show. So this will be my 4th. And yeah, like you said, I've been in a lot of the musicals and stuff at the Valley Players.
Mm-hmm. And so what are some of the things that you have done during Cabin Fever Follies? You play banjo, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so what are some of the tunes that you know pretty well? Do you know what you're doing this year?
Yes, I do.
You want to tell us? You want to give us a sneak peek? You don't have to perform, just tell us what it is.
Well, it's kind of a medley. It started off as I was looking through my book and I found this song and I was like, I haven't played that in a while. That's a pretty cool tune.
Uh-huh.
And then I thought it needed more. So yeah, right now I've been practicing it and I'm adding a lot of other songs that I know. So it's a medley.
Oh, that's cool. So how do you go about linking one song into the other? What's that process like?
Well, so with some things, I find a song that I like, and I think that might work with this song, and then I play through the song, and whenever I feel like this would be a good spot, I put it in and I see how it goes.
So you've got to be pretty comfortable with your instrument to be able to make those transitions.
Yeah. I mean, you can, yeah, if you, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let me give a little information about this year's show. It is one night only, March 20th. That's Saturday, March 20th. And the show is going to start at 7 p.m. And as I mentioned, it's on Zoom. So prepare yourself a dinner, mix yourself some drinks, sit on your couch, and log in to the link that's available to you on the Valley Players website. That's valleyplayers.com. And log in by between 6:45 and 6:59. We're going to start the show at 7, we hope, barring any technical difficulties. And we said the Raisinets will be there. The show is free. Normally we charge to come into the theater because it is a fundraiser for us, but we are accepting donations, and you can give those donations. There's a button on the Valley Players website. We're just like everyone else, we're stuck with some fixed costs to keep our building running. So we have incurred expenses, and we are still trying to keep up, tread water. So Saturday, March 20th, 7 p.m. Okay, Sharon, Michael, Taryn, I got another question for each one of you. Taryn, you've got fewer years to choose from, but let's start with you, Sharon. What are some of your fondest memories of Cabin Fever Follies, either on stage, backstage, out there in the audience? For instance, when Tom Badowski brought a live chicken and had it in the middle of his
That was my worst memory.
and the chicken just wouldn't shut up. And we had to have the chicken taken outside. But, that was memorable, right? All right, Sharon,
Yes, it
what's
was.
one of your memories?
Well, actually, probably one of my favorite acts. I don't even know who the people were who did it. They were only in one show, and they came out. It was a man and a woman, and he was dressed like winter.
Okay.
And I don't know, they sang some kind of song or something, and he was glum and cold, and then she had a sip of sunshine beer, gave it to him, he drank it, did a handstand, and his costume turned into spring.
That was not that long ago. That was, it's been within the last
That was
5 years.
I was going to say about 4 years ago.
Yeah, her name is Joy Play something, and I've forgotten his name too. But yeah, I remember that act as well. That was spectacular. He did the handstand, and out came the sun.
And out came the sun, yes.
Okay, Michael, your turn.
Then one of my other favorite acts, which was way back in the beginning, Mitchell Kontoff and Jake Barrickman. You know what I'm going to say.
I do know what you're going to say.
They were dressed so that they had a hat on over up to their shoulders, and then their body was the face, and to the tune of Bridge on the River Kwai, they were pretending to whistle through their belly button, which was their mouth. I mean, you had to see it, I guess, but it was...
Well, you've painted a nice picture, Sharon.
I don't know.
Okay, Michael, your turn. Got a favorite moment?
Boy, it's really hard to pick.
Yeah.
Because there's just so many tremendous shows over the year.
Well, as I say to my students, it doesn't have to be a favorite, just one you really liked. How's that?
Well, I like the, of course, the Von Bargen family singers. where the dogs sang.
Yes.
It's hard to beat an animal act, and they were hilarious. I think the first time I saw them, I fell off my chair, literally. And, then I think once, Doug, we talked about this, the one-off acts, well, the kids are always amazing, but the one-off acts are something, like the guy who came out who dressed up like a cowboy with a stick pony between his legs.
That was going to be mine, Michael.
That was hilarious, and it was just one of those one-off things.
I think I peed my pants when that happened.
Yeah, that was really funny.
Yeah.
But it's always a great show.
Yeah. Agreed. All right, Taryn, you got any favorites in your most recent history?
No particular moments, but I always like just when you're backstage downstairs and I unpack my banjo and everyone's there and we're just backstage. And I also like, it's kind of fun when I walk on stage. Oh, and also that time, I like this time, it was pretty funny when you didn't know I was there.
Okay.
Because you hadn't seen me.
Okay. And was I freaking out? I'm like, where's Taryn?
And like you were like, I think Taryn's here. And I'm like, yeah, I'm here. that was funny.
So, Taryn, now that you bring that up, the whole backstage scene is, I agree with you. It is pretty special. You've got some musicians and joke tellers and jugglers. They're all hanging out in the green room downstairs. And as far as they're concerned, that's probably one of the best parts of it, is hanging out with performers down in the green room. And that's when I have to send Mickey or Susan down and say, hey, you know what? You're on in a few minutes, so why don't you come back, come upstairs and we'll get you on stage. But I do think that is a kind of a special part of what Cabin Fever Follies is all about. It's not necessarily just the performing, but it's all the camaraderie. There are people there that see each other once a year, and it's like no time has gone by. They catch right back up. So I'm really glad you brought that up, Taryn. So one thing I did want to mention for the show is that, Taryn's talking about walking on stage, and Taryn, I assume you were going to talk about how, the audience is so supportive and they're clapping, and it's a great feeling as a performer. There's always such great support from the audience members. This is going to be a little different because the performers are going to be there. They're not going to see anyone. And they're going to be looking right, like what I'm doing is looking right into the camera or the camera of the computer. And they're going to be performing, and there's not going to be any auditory feedback. But what the audience is going to be able to do is they're going to be able to chat. And all the performers will see the chat. And so you can do the little, the hands clapping. You can type in a little message to the performers, and they'll see all that. But if you want a message to appear on the big screen, what do you have to do? Raisinets. Okay, folks, Sharon, Michael, Taryn, anything else that you really want people to know about Cabin Fever Follies that I've missed?
No, it's just such a unique, fun experience, and like you said, Doug, the audience is so supportive. So for the future, if any of you out there have an inkling of thinking about being on stage, this is the way to start.
Agreed. Yeah, we have had people start at Cabin Fever Follies and then realized, oh, it's not so hard to get on stage, and then they start auditioning for shows, and then we've got them for life. It's great. Michael, we haven't seen you on stage in a play. What's that all about?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
I don't know. I was in Annie with Shane and Mallory a long time ago.
Okay.
But I something to think about. But my thought is just I love community theater, and
Yep.
The Valley is so fortunate to have such an excellent and longstanding tradition of wonderful community theater. So adults and children, people of all ages can get together and put on a show for their friends.
Yeah.
And the shows are always wonderful, and it's just a real great thing for the Valley.
Yeah, Michael, you brought this up, and Taryn, you touched on it a little bit as well. The whole idea of, we've got all these young people, and Taryn, you would fit in that young person category, and sometimes people just show up for 1 year and we never see them again, and then sometimes we've got he's coming back. We've got Lee Potter, who has been on since he was probably 7 or 8 years old. How old are you, Taryn?
I'm 11.
You're 11, yeah. But you started when you were about 7, right? 7 or 8. Earlier?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Lee Potter started when he was about 7 years old, telling redneck jokes, and here we are. I don't even know how many years later. He's in his 30s. It's something. So 20-something years later, maybe. And not maybe, definitely 20-something years later. And he's still performing. He doesn't do the redneck jokes so much anymore, but he's really into poetry, and he'll be back this year with some poems. So, we've had people who have been back year after year after year after year, and then we have people that come, try it, and then they moved on. Maybe they're not interested in performing anymore, or they just wanted to do that. They had to get it out of their system, and so this was a great way for them to do it. Okay, one last plug for the time and day, March 20th, 7 p.m. start. Log in at 6:45, and it's free. Donations welcome, and we really hope to see, as we don't have a limit, right? As many people can come. You can log into our webinar. You can stream it on YouTube, or you can stream it on your television through Mad River Television. So 3 options for watching. The interactive option, so if you want us to see your applause, if you want to be able to type something in, that would have to be the webinar, but we're limited to 100 people on our webinar. So if you're one of those first 100, you get to do all that. Otherwise, you'll just have to sit back, eat and drink and enjoy. Sharon, Michael, Taryn, thank you all for joining me on this walk through memory lane and promo of our new show. Appreciate it. And thank you all out there for watching. Signing off.